What's up, guys? It's Minx. In the last video, we set up a basic asset manager thing. It doesn't really do much. We just set it up and we made things kind of static. I did make one change here. I made a base location capital first off. I also made it static and public if it wasn't. So go ahead and make that change if you want to. I recommend it because we're going to be using that in this video. And we're actually going to be doing a little bit more here. We're going to be adding some new things, changing this one. Um, so as I was going through and making different ways to do this, and I wanted to optimize this, I realized that I wanted to um, use a compressed version of an of the asset pack, and then load it from the compressed version rather than just use like individual files and stuff like that. So we're going to be doing that today, and it's just going to be using the zip format, so we don't need to do anything crazy. There's already libraries that handle that built into C#. We don't even need to add anything. Um, and then, yeah, we could give it a custom name if we really wanted to. It doesn't really hurt to give it a custom name. So like, how we use .level for a .json file, we could use like uh, .bundle or something for our thing and just, say it's an asset bundle when it's really just a compressed zip. But anyway, let's go ahead and start making these changes. So the first thing I want to do is probably change this one. So I know the name's different. I don't remember what it was before. I think it was like load static asset. I'm calling this a load single asset from path because what this is going to do is actually um, this functionality, because this happens, like we want to do this every time we um, like pick up an asset and choose what we want to load in. We need to do this every time we like load, whether we're loading it from a path or from a file stream, or not a file stream, a stream, like a stream reader. We need to do this. So we're going to make this its own method, and it's going to return stuff that loading an asset from a path. For example, if we do need to put something outside of the zip file, we can load it from a path, or if we put something inside the zip file, we can load it from the zip file. So in this video, we're actually going to be able to assign a um, asset to our walls, to our blue walls. We're going to be doing temporary stuff until we get the system fully fully fledged. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Fully built out. So just bear that in mind that some things are going to be kind of like one-offs until we're done and we can implement them across the board a little easier. So let's jump into it. So we're going to be on the on this. So we're going to add a couple more strings here. Let's get this out of the way because it's real easy. So I'm going to do a public static string asset bundle name equals, and we can leave it as empty now because we don't know what it's going to be called yet. I do, but it's we'll have to go through that together, and you might name yours something different. Public static string full asset path equals base location plus, and since we've already added the slashes here, we don't need to do anything like this. We just add asset bundle name. And that'll give us the full qualified asset bundle name that we can use as a reference to that file. So next up, um, so this is loading the asset from the path. Let's go ahead and actually pass it through to our quote unquote load bitmap. So I'm going to make it private because nothing else needs to be calling this. Maybe we'll make it private for now because nothing else needs to be accessing it. So we do a private static bitmap, load bitmap. So what this is going to be doing is this is going to load a bitmap from a file. So it's going to take the path and say, hey, create a bitmap from this. And then that's going to pass it through here. And this is going to do all that work for us. So we're going to take a string, or not a string, a bitmap, we'll just call it lowercase bitmap. And then the rest, unfortunately, for a lot of these, or for every one of these, we're going to have to pass through all of the parameters. So get used to copying and pasting these for today's video, unfortunately. It's just the way we could do it. If I didn't make these static and we made this like an instant, we could set up like class settings, but it is what it is. So now that we've set this up, what we want to do is, let's see. So we do need a return bitmap. It's going to return that, so we're going to put that here. And then we at the end do want to return bitmap. And then we do this, we copy this, Actually, do we need the temp? No, we just set the, okay, we'll do that in a second. So we'll cut out everything between the dispose, because the dispose is part of the temp which gets loaded from the file. So that's like a file reference technically, even though it's a bitmap. And we got to fix some things here because it's saying temp bitmap.get pixels. We just need to change that over to our reference bitmap here. And then there, that's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward since we've copy and pasted these over. So now what we could say is say load bitmap, temp bitmap, and then the rest are just I'm gonna pass these through once so we can copy them later. So we just need the width, height, x index, y index, x padding, y padding, x offset, y offset. And then later down the line, we could just copy and paste this over to them because we're going to be doing this a couple times based on another thing. So we'll hide load bitmap, and we can hide load single asset from path. And then the last thing I want to do, and the reason I did this is because I wanted to do something, or I wanted to load a bitmap from zip, which uses a stream when we open it without extracting the files. That way we have the zip and we don't have to keep like doing all that stuff. So we'll say public static image load, oops, load bitmap from zip. We're going to take a string path to zip. So still kind of working with a file here. String, we need a name of the bitmap, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then the rest is just the parameters from here. Do this, and we'll just take all these. And the same defaults can be true because they're not really going to be different. Okay, so got that set up. And so just like the other ones, we're going to do a return bitmap. So we'll do bitmap return bitmap equals new bitmap with a width and height. We need to specify that ahead of time. And then to do this, we need a couple things. So we're going to type this out a little bit, and then it'll give us options. So if we do actually mine's going to act a little differently. So using zip archive, if you don't have this, it should prompt you to add it. I think it's system.io.compression, if I'm not mistaken. So make sure you have system.io.compression. Zip archive zip equals zip file, and it'll probably do the same thing. Just add it, just right click and fix it. Open path to zip. Oops. Path to zip. And then we want zip archive mode dot read because we're just reading it. It already exists. And we can actually get rid of these because the only thing we're doing inside of this loop is a for each loop. So we'll say for each. And we just want a zip archive entry and zip.entries. So C# is really cool. It gives us the ability to open zips. Basically natively, this comes from, well, basically it is native. It comes with system.io. So this gives us the ability to open zips and read them. And we could extract it to a file, or we could simply just read it. And we're going to be reading it. So that's, a little cooler than having to extract it. So we have bitmap name, and down the line I could add this, like say could use more and or more advanced criteria to determine which file to read, but we're not going to for now. We're going to say if entry.name equals bitmap name. We say return bitmap equals load bitmap. We created load bitmap up here, and since they're both static, we can use it. We want a new bitmap in here because we have to pass in a bitmap. And the initialized bitmap comes from entry.open. We could also set that to a variable. We don't really need to. And then after this, we want to come out of that parenthesis because that's parameter 1, or that's the bitmap parameter, excuse me. And then we just want to pass in, when we came up here, I think it was in load single, we did this. We just want all of these here. All right, and that'll just return a bitmap, or that'll give us our return bitmap, and then we can come back down here and say return bitmap. All right, so just to kind of quickly go back over here, what's going on with load bitmap from zip. So because it's like we just wrote out this code and really discuss it too much. So we create an empty bitmap with the width and height specified as we have done in the past. And then we use, or since we expect to be loading this from a zip archive, we use the zip archive library built into C#, and open it. And then we go through each of the zip entries. Now the cool thing is this will automatically go down to different folders and stuff, so we don't need to worry about that. It will find all the files in the zip, and I believe it also stores their path. So if we want to keep that referenced, we can. It's pretty cool. So that's good. Then we check the name against the name that was passed through. So we have a zip file that we're checking, and we have a particular file within that zip file that we're looking for. If the name is equal to the bitmap name, we could check, or we're going to say, hey, return, we're going to essentially load up part of that bitmap into our return bitmap file. So based on the settings we specified when we called load bitmap from zip, and then it will return that bitmap. So let's go ahead and go to our game window. And so there's a couple ways we could do this. I was doing this when I originally created this. I'm like, okay, maybe the wall just needs to load the asset on itself. And that was a bad idea because every single wall doing that every single time was just a horrible for performance. It caused load timings on loading the test level, which had like what 20 blocks maybe. I don't know where it is. Load test level should be down here, huh? What? Okay, it has more like 40 blocks plus one, so like 41 blocks, but still, considering level's probably going to have over hundreds of blocks, we can't be having load times at 20 blocks. So I had to come up with a way to sort of uh, fix that. So what we do is we create one load time at the beginning of the game where it loads all the assets into reference, and we just use those. It may use more RAM over time, but it is going to have less overhead every time we try and like call it. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's make a public. We'll just make it a public void. I really don't care that much anymore. I don't think it's an issue. And in this public void, we just want to say, we'll say load assets. And we're not going to do everything today. We're just going to do one to get an idea of how it's going to work. So when we load assets, what do we want to do? Maybe call it, we're going to say textures because this is specifically for textures. We're going to say load and initialize textures. Now, there's no quote unquote generic way we're going to be able to do this. We need to look at our specific bitmaps and determine how we want to set this up. So let me bring out my thing. So I've already done some like testing here. So we have sprite map, which is the decompressed version that I was looking at before. And I'm going to use the request pack I want to do here. And I called it request tiles. I renamed it because it had similar name to the other ones. And I want this cube right here. This is the one we were talking about yesterday. So if you haven't already, I'll drop another link to it back down in the description today. I did it yesterday as well in the last video. Go ahead and grab this pack, and you can leave it zipped up if you want to. Actually, no, you probably need to unzip it. Unzip it. I recommend renaming this for now if you're gonna follow exactly along, or renaming the ones that you want to use because we need them to have different names. Otherwise, it's gonna find the first one, and it might not be the one. So I called mine request tiles.png. So we're gonna find this one, and we're gonna take this specific portion. Now, to find how wide and tall these are. So I looked online to see if it said, and I think it didn't say. So I ended up going into here. It's like details. Okay, so these are 980 pixels wide by 490 pixels tall. So if we open this up, 490 divided by, or well, 980, we'll say, divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 is 70. Same thing vertically, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Sorry, this gets a little confusing here. I'll do it over here, which like makes a bit more sense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 7 tall, and it's divided by 490. So each block is 70 pixels wide and 70 pixels tall. So we can use that to determine. Well, we know that, and there's no like space in between them, so we have the perfect setup here to. This is a fairly simple one to work with. So let's go ahead and Close that. If you once you've renamed it or renamed the one you want to use, go back to your where you have it stored and zip it up here. So if you zip it up, Windows can still open it as if it's like unzipped, but now you can access it and it's all zipped up. And okay, so let's close out of this. And we need a couple lists. And actually, since we know what it's called now, we know it's called spritmap.zip. Let's go back to Asset Manager. Say spritmap.zip. Make sure its capitalization is correct as well. Oops. Let's go back to game window, and we need to specify a couple variables here. So go back up to the top here. I want to keep these broken down a little bit so it's a little easier to access them. I want a public list image, and I'm gonna call this one wall textures. I want a public list image, and we're not going to do this one today or the GUI one today, but we're going to do public player textures and a public list image, and not camera textures, but GUI textures. I just want to reference these so that way we have them. The reason I want to do them separately is because this list is probably going to get a little long, or at least a couple of them are probably going to be a little long. Like player textures is probably going to be fairly short, depending on what we do. I think I want to do like a player or like a character selector because we have different characters, so we could do that. But also wanted to do like wall textures. We have all these different packs to use. Like if we go back in assets here, we've got the candy expansion, the ice expansion, the mushroom expansion. We have the buildings expansion. We have the base pack, which comes with some different stuff. Which I'm not sure if I'm going to end up using this one because I don't think it has like a sprite map per se. It does. Oh, it does. Okay, tile spreadsheet. Here we go. So we've got all sorts of different things here. So like if we're loading all of these into memory on the first, like when we load up the game, wall textures is going to get pretty big. Even if all of those aren't walls, maybe we do other ones. So probably have to add like a other object type, but it's going to start getting complicated or big. So we want to make sure we specify different ones so we can figure out what we're accessing. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and just say this dot wall textures. So we're initializing them. So we're load or initialize the textures. New list, image, and we're just gonna do this for all three of them, even though we're not gonna use the other two. Oh, that's new. Works for me. We do this one. Actually, we'll do cool. Okay. So I didn't know that was a thing. No, I came from Python when I originally started coding, so of course I wouldn't know. So to load an asset into, or load a texture, or I guess load a texture from an asset, I want to say this dot wall textures dot add, and we would say since we made everything static, again we don't have to create an instance. We just say asset manager dot load bitmap from zip, since we're doing a zip file here, and then inside of here. Our path to zip we've already specified essentially is asset manager dot full asset path, and then the name of what we want is going to be request tiles .png because that's what I called it. Yours might be different. Keep that in mind. Now that's theoretically enough, but the default settings aren't good. We've already determined that the width and height are 70, so we want to do width. Oh, am I in the wrong place? I'm in the add. I need to go back in here. There we go. Width 70, height 70, and then our y index I want to change to 1. Oops. There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. So remember when we go back into, let me go back and open that file up just to really quickly reiterate why that is. So remember, our indexes will tell us to start here, 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 or here, or same thing, here, 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 here. So if we do a y index of 1, it's going to start here, and it's going to start checking from this point. So, if we did a y index of 1, then an x index of 1, then it would start here and do this. So that's the purpose of the index, or the indices, I guess you could call them. So now, theoretically, if we've done everything right, we should have a loaded image into wall textures. What we can do now is head over to wall, and I've made some changes. So firstly, I got rid of the red changing based on how it's supposed, like based on that. So for now, just get rid of it because it's going to cause a Stack Overflow, or might still. I don't know if it still does. But just get rid of that. We'll come back to it later, and make a public texture brush instead of public brush, and get rid of the previous. I think it had a getter. When I gave it a setter to change it, it gave me the hell. Um, but for now, just do a public texture brush, call it texture, and get rid of the other thing. And then reference it everywhere that we had the previous one. I think it was called my visual. So when we say fill rectangle, do my texture. And I think that's it actually. Oh, yeah, I guess so. Okay. We'll come back to that later in a later video, probably in the next one, where we sort of apply this across the board instead of just a one. So there's a reason why I'm splitting this up, and you'll see why when we start putting this together. So in this one, we want to say this.texture equals new texture brush. And we just want to pass in this. For now, we're going to do it statically. We're just going to, or not statically, we're just going to do it like hard coded. Game.wallTextures 0, because that's the only one that's being added in, so we know it's at 0. So that sets the texture to the wall. You think it would work. Let's go ahead and test out and see what happens. So we'll just create a new level because that's the easiest way. Object reference. No, oh, my mistake. We did miss a step. That's not what I expected to happen, but that's because we didn't actually call load and initialize textures. Let's copy that, and let's go to the onload. And we want to make sure we do this onload before it creates our main menu. Because when it gets to the point where we are loading in to like a main menu and using like textures for a GUI, we want to make sure that this is done before the main menu gets actually called. Okay, so now let's go ahead and start. And it's not printed anything. That's okay. We'll go ahead and create a new level. And okay, so these are off tilt. Like they're kind of weird. And that's okay. So the reason this happens, and it took me a while to figure this out, is not because we're reading anything wrong from the file. It is passing in the correct information. However, it's scaled wrong and off center. So how do we fix that? Let's go ahead and close out of this. Let's go back to the wall. And this took me quite a while to figure out. I did a lot of research to figure this one out. So firstly, we have to say this.texture.translate transform, this.position.x, and this.position.y. So this will tell it to move the texture to where the thing is. So let's go ahead and start again. Now keep in mind we still have to transform the scale. But if we create level, now we can see that it starts at the correct spot every single time. So we got the top left corner at the top left corner. The final thing that's left to do is to determine the scale. Now, scale is not easy. So when I originally did this, I was like this.texture.scale transform, this.scale.x, and this.scale.y. That was a horrible idea. Because if we look at the, let's see, C# scale transform, the docs, it says, let's see, to scratch or sync. Does it give a, where's the example? There's an example in here somewhere. Oh, hold on. Let me, here we go. Scale transform. I was on the wrong one. I was like, what? Okay. So we can see here, design, it'll da 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 da. Am I in the wrong one again? Oh, I put the wrong one in. There we go. That's my bad. I was like, I grabbed the wrong one. I'm like, what is this? Okay. So we can see here it says the following code example is designed for use da 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 da. Rotates, scales the matrix by a factor of 3 in the x direction and a factor of 1 prepending. So what this will do is essentially multiply the scale by that. So that'd be like 300% in the width. So we need to get a ratio from the size of the texture from the width and height of this. So how do we do that? Well, we just divide. And to be honest, I didn't do the math in my head to determine which one, or I didn't do the math to determine which one was correct. I did it one way and then did it the other and see which one worked. Because I got it wrong first, otherwise I would have only done it once. But to get it, we divide the scale of this divided by this dot texture. And actually, after thinking about it, it does make sense. Dot image, dot width, or not dot width, dot size, dot width. So if this is 50 and this is 70, we take 50 over 70, and then it'll essentially multiply the width of that to get there, by 70, and that'll get it down to 50. So we're just determining the ratio over 50 between 70. That's all we're doing. And then same thing for y, this dot texture, dot image, dot size, dot height. There we go. And that should scale the image down, the texture down, to the size of this object. So if we hit start, play, and we'll just create a level here. Here we go. We've got perfectly sized, well-adjusted gray blocks with like screws or bolts or something in the corners. So I'm not sure. Actually, it should just work. Actually, if we do like a start new level and do like I like the fourth one. I think I missed. That always bugs me. I want to see how the collision looks. Start new level. I guess it's the third one. There we go. Yeah, collision looks fine. It's kind of smooth. It works though. So yeah, cool. In the next video, we're gonna add more walls. I think we're gonna add more walls because I want to have more walls at that point. I don't know if we want to do like a default wall, just like a texture assigner or something, or I don't know how we're gonna do that. Because I don't want to have to do like 20,000 different walls. We could also do like if we go back in. So we don't really have side pieces. So like, oh yeah, we do. We have these. So what we could do is say, if your piece to the left is a wall, you use this type. Oh, if your piece to the left and to the right is this type, is a wall, then you use the wall that fits the corners. If your piece to the left is not a wall, or your piece to the and your piece to the right's not a wall, then you do this. If your piece to the right's not a wall, but your piece to the left is, use this, et cetera, et cetera. We could do something like that. So then we add all of those in, and then we just use like collision or point checking to see it's like, hey, what's next to me or whatever. We could do something like that. I don't know. We'll see. We got different options. We'll kind of add some stuff. We'll probably do the player as well in the next level or next video or two. I'm not sure. We got plenty of options, like I said. So this is where things get fun. So go ahead and download that texture pack if you haven't, or if you have your own, that's great too. Just do your best to follow along. Anyway, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.